Hi, everyone. Mike Schneider from Variety, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Variety's Streaming Room. I have the cast and also the creator of HBO's Avenue 5 here. I kind of just want to stand back and let them all talk, but why don't I introduce them first? This is like the Brady Bunch right now. There's 9 people in this room. This is pretty incredible. First off, we have the creator and executive producer of the show, the legendary Armando Iannucci. Yeah, let's hear it for Armando. He plays the suave cap.
No committed to doing that for everyone now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Long night.
That's your 45 minutes right there.
Yeah.
For your entire cast. Suave captain of Avenue 5, who's not really a captain of all, Hugh Laurie.
Woo!
Now we should hold our applause.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Everyone knows who you guys are already. We'll get through this. He plays billionaire Herman Judd on the show, Josh Gad. She is Rav Mulcair, the head of Judd Mission Control, Nikki Amuka-Bird. Yeah. Without that wig. She is engineer Billy McAvoy on the show, perhaps the only sane person on the ship, Lenora Crichlow. Lenora, yay! She is the strong-willed, the original Karen, the strong-willed passenger on the show, Karen Kelly, Rebecca Front.
Woo!
Yay! She is pretty much Judd's handler on the show. She probably has the toughest job of anyone. She plays Iris Kimura, Suzy Nakamura.
Yeah.
Playing a Buzz Aldrin-style NASA vet on the show, Ethan Phillips. And finally, he is your customer relations head, Matt Spencer on the show, Zach Woods. Zach, yay, welcome.
It was great.
So I gotta
Thank
start.
You so much. Take care. This was really
Yeah. Stay safe, everyone.
We should have not applauded one person. It would have been a great story for Variety. We've just gone quiet for one person.
Yeah.
Things got dark.
That
when
is
they got
for your
together.
consideration. So there you go. This is the captain.
Consider
So, Armando, I thought of you a couple weeks ago when the SpaceX flight actually took launch, because that was the moment where I was like, oh shit, like Armando, like 40 years from now, Avenue 5 is happening. This thing's real. Like 40 years from now, everyone's going to be like, Armando got it right. This is exactly how it happened. This is how it happened.
I'm happy to take the credit for coming up with the idea of spaceflight, but I mean, I was inspired by Elon Musk's optimism that he would get. Yes, I think though. Richard Branson's been saying that he's going to take tourists in space, and he's been saying within 8 months, and he's been saying within 8 months for the last 10 years, and it still hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So 40 years, I think is about right.
And I know you did your share of research. You went to JPL. I mean, you sort of have a good idea now that a lot of this that feels like science fiction now. I mean, you didn't go too far out. Everything that you did on the show is.
Hugh and I went to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I went around SpaceX, and I went around Virgin Galactica, and it was great just meeting the people there. They kind of gave us ideas. I think it was at JPL that he told, because I asked about long distance voyages and what's the protection against radioactivity. I think he was the one that said, oh, well, we just encase it in human fecal matter. He gave us the idea for that. That's standard apparently.
Yeah. Human fecal matter, also an amazing band. But you got a lot of ideas from that. But my favorite thing, I think, in this show is how realistic the time lapse. Obviously, like, we never see this on shows set in outer space, that there's going to be minutes that pass before you can communicate with someone on Earth. And you, like, leaned into that. I love that you leaned into the very specific scientific truths.
Well, I'm a bit of a sci-fi fan, but I like hard sci-fi where they try and keep to the rules of physics and not invent things that are magic, like teleportation and so on. So I thought, and also I think it adds to the comedy when you experience the reality, the problems that you would encounter in something like this. So I thought the delay, I mean, we've cheated the delay, the actual delay between here and something like Saturn is something like 5 or 6 minutes, but we made it an annoying 48 seconds. But I was very flattered that once the first couple of episodes gone out and we had the storyline of the coffins being ejected, but the gravitational weight of the ship had forced them to make an orbit of the ship. The science consultant on Star Trek tweeted that she'd spent a day doing the maths and it was correct. So that
Wow.
Someone should check on her.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you heard it here first. Avenue 5, the most scientifically accurate show on television. So,
So if people are homeschooling at the moment, then show your kids Avenue 5.
Yeah.
I think it's ideal for all ages.
Right. It's really family friendly. It's really kid friendly. Hugh, you went on that visit to JPL too. What did you take away from that? What surprised
I
or
of
interested
course, I was absolutely overwhelmed by the first thing I was overwhelmed by was how advanced Armando was in his knowledge and enthusiasm for space travel. I thought we were going on a sort of a jaunt. I thought we were just going to gawp. And it rapidly became apparent that he is incredibly knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the whole notion of space travel. So things like the fecal matter just passed me by because I was just so open-mouthed in wonder at the whole thing. But what I do remember is working with Brian Singer about 15 years ago when he put down a deposit, I believe. I mean, I could be making this up, but I don't think I am. I put down a deposit on the first Virgin Galactic flight of some literally an astronomical figure, to be on the first flight, which is yet to happen, but is presumably not that far away. I mean, we get closer every day, and it's it was an absolutely thrilling thing to be amongst. I think Armando will agree, to be amongst palpably. Well, I mean, they're rocket scientists, so they are very, very clever people.
But they were also like your uncle, weren't they? They were like guys who fix things in a garage, and under a car.
They were exactly big. Yeah, if your boiler started leaking, they are the people you'd ask because they just sort of know how stuff works. And they were immensely gentle and patient and accommodating, and it was an absolutely wonderful day. I mean, unforgettable day, incredible. We saw. Did we see the double of Rover?
Yes.
I think they made 2 rovers, and we saw the non-racing version, as it were.
It was the one that they used to test on Earth, the maneuvers.
Yeah, which was, and it's sort of heart-stopping in a way. And they actually showed us some footage of the taken around the world of people watching the first module landing on Mars, and you could see people around the world moved to tears and yet there are no human beings involved in the actual adventure, but you could see people just moved by the spirit of the thing, the daring, the courage of it. It is an absolutely I'm getting quite emotional now, even remembering it. It was a very wonderful experience to see.
Josh, let's talk about so there are these rocket scientists who are
sounds like a great trip, guys. Thanks.
Busy that day, Josh, I don't know, but what's fascinating is that you have these rocket scientists who are really behind a lot of this stuff, and then you have these like crazy characters in both Elon Musk and Richard Branson and others who are sort of the face of this new world, and obviously you get to play a version of that, and clearly have some fun with that. What do you make of that, of these characters, and what did you take from these real life sort of I don't want to say hucksters, but they're definitely showmen that are sort of at the forefront of all this.
Well, it's so funny. I've always been fascinated by the American entrepreneur and just the entrepreneur in general, especially like 20th century Rockefeller types.
You have an Eli Whitney tattoo, right, Josh?
I do. Yeah. I do. Dude. And Thanks for exposing that. So I was fascinated though by the evolution or de-evolution, if you will, of what the entrepreneur has become in the early 21st century. And so Armando and I sort of talked about people like Billy McFarland, a huckster, as you said, the huckster behind the Fire Festival, or Elizabeth Holmes, who created Theranos. And these people are so addicted to selling a product, but don't have the savvy to actually make the great product. So they sort of, they do a lot of flash and a lot of razzle dazzle, get everyone committed to this idea, and then just go with it, even though there is nothing to sell but an idea. And that essentially became Herman Judd. I think he is sort of the next iteration of that showman or show person who actually has nothing underneath the facade.
Yeah, and I'm struck by when you think about, say, the Tesla, that is an amazing car that Elon Musk was behind, but it blows up all the time. So, and in the case of, say, this ship, Avenue 5, it's amazing. It's in space. It's carrying people in space, but it's made on the cheap. The letters are falling down. There are elements of this that are still sort of very questionable. Suzy, I want to bring you in because obviously your character sort of has to play it a bit straight in sort of, being his handler and sort of, working with this man-child, but at the same time, she knows what's really up. She knows the secret behind the facade of what this ship really is. So talk about playing that and sort of having to balance that.
I think that the balance is what makes it fun and what makes it interesting to me, because as much of a showman that Herman Judd is, I think Iris sees him as a visionary. Like Thomas Edison was a showman, and so like I think she has to take the possibilities of the craziness that he puts out there and make it a reality. And then for all his mistakes or budget cuts or whatever, she has to put out those fires as well. But I don't think she's propping up, a liar. I think to Iris, at least, I think she really believes, like, you kind of have to be crazy to be that kind of a visionary. And she took this Post-it that said space travel ? And she had to make it a reality. But but to her, that's like, she sees him as a creative person. And I think science and creativity are linked. And a lot of people separate them as sort of left brain and right brain. But I do think you need to be creative to imagine something that doesn't exist yet and then go about to make it real.
Yeah. Suzy, did I ever tell you about when I went round Virgin Galactic, and obviously Richard Branson wasn't there. There's a whole other team in place. But someone came out who was like not quite the CEO, but fairly senior. And she came out and she introduced herself to me as, she said, "Hello, my name is such and such, and I'm a Jedi. I'm here to instill Jedi values into this whole endeavor. I'm there to make sure that the work for," and she was being very, very serious about being a Jedi and how that was her function, really, to make the organization believe in the vision. Oh, I've just lost some light there.
Well, Lenora, on the other side,
Jedi.
that was a very Jedi moment.
It was, yeah.
On the other hand, Billy is the only person really on this ship who can save them, I think, at this point. She's the one who really sort of has her head on her shoulders and knows how to make the ship not explode or for people to survive. So talk about that sort of being the again, sort of the brains of the operation, the calm of the operation, or the one who's going to kind of save them.
Well, I think it's a bit of life imitating art, wouldn't you say, guys? My role in this endeavor. No, I'm joking. I think that for Billy, yes, I think that one of the things that I got struck about the way she has to interact and find balance with Hugh's character was just this finding that balance between knowledge and sort of all the information, and realizing how important the messenger is and the packaging of it is and the presentation of it is for the masses. And I mean, there's parallels with what's going on right now, and that she has to start taking value Ryan's ability to do that, and use what she's got at her disposal. Just shouting facts at everyone clearly doesn't work. People, especially en masse, don't seem to respond well to just being told things. They need it packaged and managed and spoon-fed and made accessible to them. And I don't think that Billy's ever really had to spend much time doing that. So I think that's the balance between her and Ryan, is she's like, okay, well, I have some knowledge, but I do understand the messenger matters, and you seem to have the skill set there, so let's work together. So that's the kind of, I feel like their balance, and how Billy decides that's her role, and she's kind of cool with it because she doesn't really have interest in dressing up anything for anyone.
Right. And Hugh, on the other hand, I think one of my favorite elements of the truth coming out about Ryan is, I don't know if people are more upset that you're not actually a captain, or that they discover that you're British, and what they're more pissed off about. I think it might be that they find out you're British.
Yeah, I understand that. It is a huge disappointment in many ways.
It upsets me as your co-star. It always upsets me to learn that the guy that I grew up with, who saved lives in house, is a bullshit artist.
Bullshitting. Yeah. Stop doing the annoying voice. I've had a lot of that, but that's sort of what I'm used to, that slightly nagging feeling of fakery about everything that we do, that we pretend to an expertise that we don't have. Even within the world of acting, you know, I pretend to know how to act. I don't even know how to do that. In actual fact, filmmakers don't know how really to represent filmmaking in films. Every time you see it done, it's very unconvincing. Actors don't really know how to act. Politicians don't know how to politic. Nobody knows how to do anything. This is part of the discovery of adulthood, I think, is realizing that grown-ups aren't really that grown up after all. You know, as children, we sort of invest in grown-ups this sort of almost infinite knowledge and competence, and then we discover that it's not only not there now, but probably never was. Yeah, maybe never was. And I just feel I feel at the sharp end of that.
Well, Rebecca,
Michael, what was more depressing, this panel or the last one you did with Mark Ruffalo?
You are all beautiful people. Rebecca, let me ask you about, obviously we kind of joked that Karen was a Karen at the start, but she kind of like leans into that role and actually sort of finds a voice as well. You know, talk about her evolution, and then I also want to ask you about working with Armando through the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think Karen is one of those people, when the crisis happens, you know, everybody is affected by that, and some people are going to fall apart and some people are going to rise to the top, and Karen was always going to rise to the top because she's that kind of person. She only really exists when there's a problem. And it's been really funny actually watching the snowballing of the whole Karen movement, because she wasn't called Karen because Karen was a thing over in the UK. It wasn't really.
We didn't know that,
wasn't it? We didn't know that a Karen was a meme.
Was a Karen.
But she just has. She just is one of those women, and I've met many women like that, who knows her rights, and she's got, you know, a smattering of contract law in her brain that's just enough so that she knows what her rights are and at what point she can demand a refund, and all of that is actually very useful. Who knew? But it's very useful when a spaceship goes wrong. It's actually quite useful to know, you know, how can I get a better cabin? How can I make sure that, you know, that I maintain contact with people on Earth? People need to know these things, and Karen's the one who will find out. So yeah, she absolutely is thriving on this chaos. I think the biggest problem for Karen will be, you know, if things ever start to go right on Avenue 5 and they just get back on the original trajectory and head to Earth, Karen will just kind of
No rock.
collapse.
Just
Just go in the corner of rock. There'll be nothing for her to do.
Well, luckily there wouldn't be a show then. So
No, it's never going to happen.
But real quick, I mean, describe an Armando set to me. Like, what is that? What's the vibe like? How does everyone?
Very tricky. I think we'd all say very, very frosty atmosphere. No, it's lovely. He creates a lovely clubbable, physically cold. He creates a lovely clubbable atmosphere in which everybody can contribute, and is you're free to chip in ideas. You're expected to kind of muck about and play, and so it's brilliant. I think we all love working with him. Obviously, we're going to say that on a panel like this.
But sometimes you'll be on a
I think
show where
privately we would all say
sometimes
it as well.
you'll be in a situation where like only the people on the top of the call sheet get the cocaine, but like on this show it feels like the cocaine is evenly distributed in a way that's like
Yeah.
You'll feel
It's
like
worth pointing out that that's a metaphor. It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
it's a metaphor,
nice
but it
headline.
is a metaphor for
Nice
cocaine
headline.
use.
It's a metaphor for actual sniff magic on myself and Armando Iannucci.
It's a literal metaphor.
Yeah.
Zach, on Silicon Valley, Jared felt like a little bit of a similar character. What would you say the differences and similarities are between this character?
I think they're pretty different. I mean, I think similar bone structure, but aside from that, I think like they both are sort of egoless in different ways. I think Jared on Silicon Valley is sort of pathologically self-abnegating, where he'll endlessly deprive himself for the benefit of others. I think Matt is egoless in a different way, where like I certainly when chaos sort of tickles my own life, I seize up because I don't want to lose things, and I don't want to hurt, and I don't want to be lonely, and I don't want to be out of control. And you could say that that's all a form of sort of ego. You know, you don't want to be stripped of the things you identify with or are attached to. And in the case of Matt, I think he's blissfully free of those attachments and able to just sort of backstroke through the chaos in a way that's nice for him and disturbing for everyone around him.
So, Nikki, I want to ask you first off, did you get to keep the wig?
That wasn't a wig.
so disappointing when people see me in real life and I don't have hair out of here.
Exactly.
No, I didn't get to keep the wig. She is very fussy about who she spends her time with. It was a great, a fun way to kind of introduce myself to the character. Nicole Stafford just came up with this brilliant idea about an Afro power bob and how that would make you feel authoritative, and how a Black woman in the future would look as a businesswoman. And I just loved it. I loved playing with it. And it sort of, it was where I kind of really started with the details of the characterization. Yeah.
I love, because we just watched episode 8, obviously, and the moment when your character realizes, oh, she's now going to be stuck on Avenue 5, and maybe it's not so bad. There's buffets, but
yeah, and then she's like bombarded with dead bodies just floating towards her in space, and she realizes, oh, it's that bad.
Yeah. That's
she's
probably a
constantly
good
managing a nervous breakdown. I think Arm realized that Rav was just somewhere on her own trying to manage the situation and getting more and more anxious as time went on. Yeah.
That's a great segue real quick to talk about all the death. Armando, a lot of death in a comedy.
I mean, if there's 6,500 people on board, including crew, and I think there are 11 deaths by the end. That's statistically, and I think we have to go with the science here. Statistically, I think that's bearable.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I think that's pretty good. I think we should be opening up, and I think it's a pretty good voyage, actually. One we should all be proud of, actually.
Yeah. The VFX in this episode, which you bring up quite a bit of the airlock and those bodies immediately freezing. I mean, that is some incredible VFX, by the way. That was disturbing.
Thank you very much. I mean, I didn't do them, but
yeah, but nonetheless, I assume you had a vision for what you wanted that to look like, and it sort of probably exceeded expectations.
Yeah, no, all credit to Simon Frame and his whole crew, because there's a lot of pressure to put on someone when a whole episode is about someone saying, these are all visual effects, don't believe it. And then it happens. And it has to be so believable.
Right.
People are going, that must be really happening. That's not a visual effect. But we know they have to be visual effects.
Yeah.
Because we didn't at that stage have the budget to actually fly people up into space and jettison them.
And kill them. Season 2, we are doing that, aren't we?
I think so. There are people who have been signing up to die in season 2.
You know, by the way,
you
know that Tom Cruise is shooting a movie in outer
In-
space,
that's
legitimately.
Yes.
Legitimately. So we could
Oh, stop.
piggyback.
Yeah.
Because of the
That's
virus? Is he doing it because of coronavirus?
I haven't.
You can't be too
I
careful.
don't know.
He's
Cruising,
partnering with
social distancing.
he's partnering with Elon Musk on that, right? So
Yes.
again, I do feel like HBO has the budget for a very special Avenue 5 episode in space. So I'm just saying, Armando, if that's something you
Well,
want to
it's
pitch them.
mostly the thing about space is, I remember when I was going around Virgin Galactic, I was being shown around, and someone was accompanying me who was just a visitor, but it turned out she was an ex-astronaut, and she was asking all these detailed questions, saying, so when you're up there, you're weightless for how long? And they'd say, 3 minutes. And she was saying, okay, so you get training for gravity free, you get training on Earth before that happens. No, we want people to enjoy the experience of it. And she said, no, for those 3 minutes, they will be mostly vomiting and trying to work out how to stay upright. And you could just see the guy's eyes just go, just go blank and go, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. And just walked on. And she whispered to me and just said, I think they need to think about this.
That's Ethan's character.
Yeah, Ethan.
Yeah.
Ethan, let's bring you in here. I mean, first off, obviously, you've got the sci-fi bona fides, thanks to all your years on Star Trek. So you bring that, but you also bring your Benson's bona fides, which, by the way, still one of my favorite shows of the early 80s. But talk about coming in and playing this sort of Buzz-like character and what you wanted to do with him.
Well, I didn't know it was Buzz until I had a little chat with Armando early on in the before we actually started filming. I always got the sense that they wanted a guest, they wanted some guests, and they wanted an astronaut, somebody familiar with space, but they went to the astronaut D list when they got Spike. I mean, he was a star when he did walk on the moon many years ago, but I think now, 40 years later, it's not as big a deal. It would be like being president at one time and then maybe like now it's like comptroller of Bridgeport or something. Nobody even really knows what he did, but I think he's enthusiastic and he seems to be inured to denigration. I don't know if he's a narcissist, but he's, I just worked on somebody who I think I watched astronaut training, and my God, what they go through and how few are picked. It's extraordinary. It's the training and the chances of becoming somebody who will go on one of these trips is very, very slight. So I always figured he had a lot of integrity and a lot of strength, but I think he's become addicted to alcohol over the last couple of years. I'm just still working on him. You're always working on him. There's never a result, it seems. It's always just a process,
Yeah.
Every time we do a panel, Johnny takes shots at the Bridgeport comptroller.
Every single time.
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
Nobody knows.
Like a government position, right?
Oh, yeah. We have comptrollers in America. It's really common here.
And besides Emmy campaigning, you are actually campaighning for comptroller as well.
Yes.
Actually am.
So for your consideration,
Comptroller of Bridgeport, please. Promise to bring it.
That's an important distinction.
Armando, talk about, I love, by the way, the idea of that bridge, because that's an amazing set. And the fact that it's all for show, that it's all fake. It's not real. These are actors. That idea, like, how did that come to you? And what was...
Well, it was sort of, once Hugh and I had to talk about, is he British or is he American? Why can't he be both? Why can't he start off as one? And it raised the whole idea of peeling back the layers of, I kind of like the idea of the very opening shots of the first episode looking like we were going to get a kind of son of Star Trek or kind of part of the Star Trek family. And then with each episode, we're ripping bits off of it to say, no, that's not what it's really like in space. It's a lot messier, and actually we have very little control over what we're doing. Because, you know, again, to go back to the science, you know, you're very limited in what you can do in terms of the amount of fuel you've got and how far you can try. You can't really steer. All this that he's doing, steering. What's he steering? I mean, there's nothing, nothing coming at him. You know, all this business with a wheel. But people like reassurance, and we looked at cruise liners actually for that. You know, the fact that the captain is in all this braid and is meant to look like he's a kind of an admiral, as if somehow he's a brave person. Been in lots of wars. In fact, he's just taking it to Portugal and back. You know, it's a sense of security, I think.
That set itself is pretty amazing. I mean, how would you describe like how enormous? I mean, it looks huge as a viewer, but what was that set like itself? Was it as big as it looks?
It was very big. I think initially it was quite frightening. I think because it was so big. I think we were, you know, my question is always, okay, but can we work in here and make it also intimate? And actually my job was to try and make sure that though we had this big set, we weren't showing it off all the time. We weren't blowing all our big, huge shots without any comedy going on in it. And what I wanted to do was make sure that even though we had this enormous backdrop, actually all the focus was on the intimate moments in some of the smaller sections of the set. So we designed it. Simon Bowles, our designer, designed it so that even though it looked big, it was full of lots of little corners and corridors and smaller bits where especially since there's so much of this show is about the public mustn't know what's really going on. So there were lots of furtive little areas that we could kind of have quieter conversations on, where we spend most of the time actually recording.
And then, Nikki, did I read correctly that you shot a lot of the mission control scenes at a McLaren factory?
Yes, I did. That was the one bonus of like not being on the spaceship with the other guys. I got to be in this amazing set, which looked like so incredibly high tech and like something from the future anyway. So yeah, it was beautiful.
So I know there's a fair amount of improv that goes on, but how far does that go? Was there a moment where you guys went on a riff that ended up in the show, or is there a specific moment where you kind of went somewhere that maybe you weren't expecting and it became a thing?
I'm trying to think. I mean, we do lots of rehearsals, and that's where we try out lots of our
yeah.
But you guys will have a better idea.
Zach and I did a pretty insane riff with with that poor guy Michelle with the camera.
That's right. Yeah.
With the camera that just went down a rabbit hole of insanity, where there was this amazing day player who was on set, and it became like a Second City improv where we just kept like forcing this guy to just do weirder and weirder things with us. You remember that?
Yeah, to his credit, he was extremely game.
He was great.
Yeah.
Great. I was sad we fired him.
Yeah.
Well, he put in a claim. He put in a claim for bullying. So
yeah,
you know.
oh, he did.
Yeah.
No,
he wasn't yes-anding you guys enough.
Yeah, we had to let him go. We technically don't have the authority, but Josh and I just sort of co-fired him and figured that the institution would catch up with it.
Yeah, he started getting greedy with all that coke, and we were just like, "We need you out."
But you know, you were asking about like what it's like Armando said. Like one thing that's so nice is like he was saying, like rehearsals are these very sort of like I think the metaphor you used, Arm, was like that it's like a chicken stock where you put in all these ingredients and then boil it down and then put in more ingredients and then boil it down. So it's really nice because it's so collaborative in the rehearsal. And then once you get on set, you can play, but it's pretty much, you know, they've distilled all of that chaos and conversation and collaborativeness down to these great scripts. So it's
and there's always that
element of surprise, isn't there? Because Arm keeps the camera rolling after every take. So you'll get your lines done as they're written, and then you just kind of free flow. And yeah, it's like trial and error, but you get these really beautiful moments of naturalism and like real life fly on the wall moments that I think are brilliant. Yeah.
Does anyone play the game of trying to make someone break? Is there any sort of
not around Suzy? No.
I think I was trying to make Zach laugh with when you told me to just keep coming up with insults for Zach in there was the big sort of complaining conference thing. And I remember thinking, for some reason, the name Tony Macaroni popped into my head. And I thought, I know that will make him laugh. And it did. I was delighted.
And it
was the
so
only
much
time
venom.
I managed to make you go.
She said it so venomously. She was like, Tony Macaroni.
Tony Macaroni. I still don't know why, but I just knew it would make you laugh.
I love making Hugh laugh. Every time I get Hugh to laugh on set,
you can make me laugh.
That joy that I get, that adrenaline that I get from him breaking is because he's so good at what he does, and he's so he's in his zone, and then he'll just go up.
And I feel like I've lost somehow every time. I feel like I've lost something.
Yes,
You
but
cheapened yourself.
We win.
Have no respect for the written word. You see?
Johnny, what Johnny was thinking about Suzy's true though. Like when you were talking about Iris, I was thinking about how Iris's relationship to Judd is almost like Suzy's relationship to everyone on set. Like,
yes,
he will indulge, and like so many actors when they're done acting a scene will be like, oh, I don't know, I hope I did a good job. Suzy will be like, I hope I didn't screw it up. I hope I set up that joke for this other person well. It's her, like, she's constantly worried about, like, I won't break because if something's funny, I don't want to wreck it. It's such a, so when you were saying that, Johnny, it made me think of that. It's like, she's constantly alley-ooping, right? Alley-ooping?
Yeah.
Alley-ooping.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Hugh, one more thing about that episode, about episode 8, is that moment where you pull that wig off, that sort of, and it looks painful, and the reaction to everyone around you, and that was, I don't know how many takes that took, but even that, like, that was a really fascinating feat to watch that go down.
Well, good, thank you. It was the interesting thing is, just as a sneak peek behind the scenes, what I pulled off was actually my real hair. What was underneath it was actually a bald cap that had been put on. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's actually how we did it. So it's all sort of there. It's very literally very layered. No, well, it was, I thought, because we talked early on about, you know, at what point Ryan is going to reveal that he's actually not who he claims to be, and at what point you realize that he's British and he's not a captain. And actually, then why doesn't everything turn out to be false? Why doesn't at some point he take his teeth out, or take his hair off, or take one of his legs off, or something, you know, some, and that's, the hair is as far as we've got. So, but who knows where it could go? Yeah, we'll be feasting on each other before the thing is out, I'm sure.
a lot of places for this show to go, Armando. So we're looking forward to more from Avenue 5. But I thank you all so much for joining us here in the streaming room. This was fun. Avenue 5 is fun. It's all streaming right now over at HBO. So do check it out if you haven't yet, and feast on all these episodes. Thank you so much, Armando and the cast, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Great to see you all.